Howdy folks, welcome back to Black Sheep Meadow. I'm Brent.
And I'm Amber.
And we got a good one for you today.
We got a great one for you today. She's
starting to catch on. So when we started our journey, first off, for our homestead, Black Sheep Meadow, year 2023, Amber and I are attempting to produce or grow 80% of all of our own food. And we are looking at staying away from the grocery store. We're trading out with other homesteads. We're doing everything we can to become self-sufficient, self-sustainable. And there is a lot of things we were not expecting along this way. There was a lot of unexpected benefits, I will say. So we are just past the prime part of harvest season. We just received our first, or actually a half steer of beef for this year. Just a few weeks ago, we got a video out on that just a couple back. And we finished harvesting some of our carrots, simply because whenever our beef got here, we wanted to can this year's beef stew, which is one of my favorites.
We've talked about it before in the past, and we let the carrot bed go because if you notice, when you buy carrots from the store, they will last in your refrigerator for a month.
Few weeks to a month.
They seem to last for a very long time in your refrigerator, but when you have homegrown carrots, they don't last 3 days. And if that doesn't tell you something about the stuff that you're buying in the grocery store, I don't know what will. So we waited and waited until we got our beef, because then we would have the beef that we wanted to do Brent's beef stew. So that we would have our carrots to go in with the beef stew and they would be fresh. And when you do that, so in doing that, the carrot bed went a lot longer than we normally would let it go. But we knew if we kept them in the ground and kept them growing, they would stay good. So yesterday was the day to finally harvest the carrots because we were going to process. We didn't even set up the camera until about halfway through because we really didn't expect to have a good carrot harvest. And we ended up with how much?
We ended up with 52.5 pounds of processable carrots.
Which is very exciting. It's not what our goal was, but it is definitely more than we thought that bed was going to produce.
Yes.
And that was just really exciting. So we went and grabbed the camera, and we'll put in some time lapse here of us harvesting the carrot bed. It's really fun. Carrots are another one of those, you don't really know what you get because they're below ground. You can't see them. So it's kind of the little treasure hunt as far as harvesting them. But that was really, really, really exciting. So in doing that, it meant that it's now, like he said, the spring season is kind of coming to an end. Summer is setting in. The heat's taking effect on all the vegetables. We've really kind of harvested, and now it's where my job comes in. And I do most of the processing.
It's still us. I help a lot. I peeled 25 pounds of potatoes.
He does help some, but when it comes to actually running and setting up the stuff to preserve or can, that's primarily me. So I am very fortunate that my Christmas and birthday presents are canners. This is what I asked for Christmas.
This is one of two.
This is one of two. This is my smaller one. This is the one I started with because I wasn't quite sure how I was going to like pressure canning. And if you've never pressure canned before, you know that there's kind of a stigma in it being scary. And I am here to tell you that it is not scary. It is very not scary. And once you've done it a few times, you realize that it's very safe. It's very user-friendly. There's a lot of guidelines that you have to go to, but it's very much like here's a table, and you go by the table and you go by the guidelines, and it's done. So one of Brent's favorite things is beef stew. We've talked about it several times, and this is freshly canned beef stew. So this is meal prep for the long term. So a lot of people talk about meal prepping today, and they talk about meal prepping for health reasons, and most of it is done on a Saturday or a Sunday, and it's meal prepping for the week or 3 days. This is me meal prepping one day for a year. So these meals in a jar, this is completely cooked. I could open this up right now and eat it. It would just be cold, and I'm not a fan of cold stew, but you could. Technically you could. You don't even need to heat this up. But this is now a perfect meal for Brent and I. When we get home late from work one day, I take this out, put it in a pot of water, let it heat up for 5-10 minutes, or you could dump the whole thing in the pot if you wanted to. A lot of times we do it in a pot of water because it's one less dish to clean. Because if you're coming home late and you're in a hurry and you're hungry, last thing you want to really do is wash more dishes. So this, no added preservatives, no added coloring, I know exactly where this meat came from. I know exactly where these potatoes came from. I know exactly where these carrots came from. I know how much of everything is put in here, and I know it is processed safely, and it is amazing. So the idea that I can meal prep one day and it will provide, yesterday
we did 21
quarts of beef stew. So that is 21 meals for 2 people that I did yesterday afternoon.
We did.
So while I filled these, when I filled the 21 quarts up, we had the carrots the 52 pounds of carrots. So instead of them going bad, as soon as I finished this, I ran a batch of carrots. So I have 16 pints of carrots that also came out of the garden. So I was able to get 21 meals with carrots and an additional 16 pints of carrots out of our garden and processed yesterday. They were harvested yesterday and processed yesterday.
And just so y'all know, this is carrots just like canned carrots that you'd buy at the grocery store. Instead of a tin can, it's in a glass jar, metal lid, sealed up in a vacuum. Shelf stable, I believe Ball says 18 months now.
They've upped it to 18 months, but if you know anything about canning, as long as this is stored correctly and it doesn't lose its seal, you have a long time.
Yep.
That's what I will tell you. Use your own judgment. It's your kitchen, your rules type thing. You have a long time with this, but this will be shelf stable for minimum 18 months. I don't think they'll last us on our shelf for 18 months because we will use them. But I have carrots that will taste absolutely delicious a year from now. And I did that all in a day. So we really want to talk about meal prepping. The other thing that I did was I had room in the canner, so I threw some of the peeled potatoes that didn't fit in these jars. So I also canned a couple pints of our potatoes. And if you look, they're very, very pretty. And you'll notice that it still has a little bit of starch, but to reduce the starch, you soak your potatoes.
Yep.
Soak your potatoes overnight and it'll reduce the amount of starch that comes out of them during the processing.
I was gonna say, we soaked these potatoes right at 24 hours.
Right. He peeled and diced them up, and then we put them on water and let them sit in the refrigerator on cold water for about 24 hours. And that reduces the amount of starch that you'll see when you process them.
So continuing on for what we were not expecting when we started this, our tomato sauce. Okay, so this has been, we did a couple different versions of tomato sauce last year. We did like a thin sauce, a thick sauce. We did some crushed tomatoes. And then we did a seasoned, like an Italian tomato sauce, which is ultimately become our favorite. It is, we weren't expecting, if you go to the grocery store and you buy a tomato sauce, whether it's for spaghetti or whatever, you're kind of stuck with whatever flavors they've already picked out for you. And I think,
and if you read the ingredient list on those jars of, the different spaghetti sauces and stuff that are out there, it's like a mile long. There's a lot of ingredients in that.
So this particular sauce, we can actually flavor it however we want. And it's for our taste. It's our acquired, and if we want to change that up once or twice throughout the year, we'll make 2 different batches.
So what I normally do is I normally do at least 1 big batch of our Italian sauce because we use that the most. Like we will use that quite a bit. But then I'll also do a batch of maybe mixed half and half of a straight, almost like tomato soup. And then almost like a tomato paste, a thicker version, because you could take those and then season them how you want. This is more like meal prep.
Yep.
Because and most of the time when I open one of these, I don't have to add anything to it. I can put this on noodles. I can put this over whatever I want, and this is done. There's no salt, no pepper, nothing needs to be added to this. You can doctor it up, like if you have a taste for something really good. I'll take and add like a half a cup of cream to this and make like a creamy Italian soup with a grilled cheese sandwich. Amazing. So that's kind of how I do my tomatoes. And this was just my first batch that I went with what we use the most of first because that seems more logical to me, is do the ones I know we're going to eat the most of first and process as many as I can there. And then the next time I have a big batch of tomatoes, and I'll stock up on tomatoes again, have a batch, then I'll process maybe in a chunky tomato. I'll see what I feel like the day that the tomatoes are ready and go from there. But
and there's other things, like one thing we haven't done is we don't have any of our canned corn out here, I don't see.
No, I didn't bring any corn out.
But we did canned corn. But we've got our green beans, which we did, what did we say we did on green beans?
I did over 50, I think it was 54 pints of green beans. Well, as we talked about in the last video, we'd harvested over 100 pounds of green beans. So, and we really enjoy green beans. And if you haven't had fresh from your garden canned green beans, I just can't get over the fact that there's nothing else in here but green beans.
Yep.
There's green beans, hot water, and just a little bit of salt, and that is it.
Everything you see here on the table, which y'all can't quite see it because the camera's a little too high, but everything we've shown you today has come from our homestead.
Has come from our garden. And it's amazing, but now this is just like a can of green beans that you buy at the store. And it has got a shelf life that's, you know, like I said,
It can get mixed with the chicken pot pie this winter, this fall.
Chicken pot pie. There's a lot of things. So our next round of meat chickens, I plan on actually canning some chicken. So canning chicken is just like what the canned chicken you get at the store. So it has that, the texture wise is just like canned chicken at the store, which is kind of, to me, reminds me of canned tuna. It's kind of dry, kind of flaky. So it's not quite like fresh chicken, but to me it is very edible, and we will do just canned chicken, and I'm actually going to do some canned like chicken pot pie in a jar that I am really excited about. But I will do more canned chicken, which you take canned chicken and a can of green beans and a can of tomato sauce or corn or carrots, and now I have shelf-stable meals for a year. It's very, very nice.
So one more subject line on what we weren't expecting when we started this journey. And this is kind of my territory.
This is where it's really kind of been eye-opening for him. If you guys know me in personal life, I've kind of gone through a nutrition, health, eye-opening thing for several years now. But for him, he's always been eat anything, eat everything.
But the health factor of all of this, you know, we don't have the preservatives. I'm not spraying the chemicals. We didn't go into this journey expecting or attempting to do any of that. Like I said, we went in this for being preppers. How can we be self-sustainable? I can't reproduce chemicals here on our homestead. So if I had to grow this without going to a feed store and picking up some type of spray to kill worms, how can I do that? Now, we do use some organic worm killers, but we're not using
more home
harsh
remedy
chemicals. Yeah, more home remedy type stuff. We really weren't expecting that. So something else we were not expecting would be the amount of trash. This is, once again, this is in my category. As you can see here, everything is in a jar. This jar is going to get reused probably dozens of times over its life.
I don't know if they have a lifespan. I think they'll go as long until they don't crack.
So the only thing that is waste here that we have thrown away is the actual lid itself. We're only supposed to use the lid one time.
Well, depends on who you talk to. Remember, your kitchen, your rules. If your lid comes off and it's not damaged, do not feel like you cannot try to reuse that. I know plenty of people, and I have done it myself, where I'm canning 14 and I only have 12 lids and I need to reuse some. So I always keep some of the used lids, especially if they come off nicely and you don't damage them and the seal looks nice and flat still. You can still can, but you need to keep an eye on them when they come out of the canner. Those are the ones that will be most likely to not seal. So, and if they don't seal, it's not the end of the world. You eat that one first.
Correct.
You eat that one the same day. You take the lid off, you put it in a container, you put it in the refrigerator, or you put a plastic lid on here, a reusable plastic lid. You put it in the refrigerator and you use it within 3 days. You're not wasting it. Now, if all of them don't seal, you might have to redo it. But
our
you
trash,
can.
Our trash, though, we used to do about 2 32-gallon trash bags every 7 days. Now, for our household trash, I really think we're probably close to a 32-gallon trash bag every 10 days, and that's all of us prepping all of our meals. I mean, I don't even know what we're really throwing away anymore.
It's very little, you know, those late nights when we want to use a paper plate instead of a washable plate. It's the milk, some of the dairy stuff, some of the dairy packaging. Stuff like that.
We no longer have a paper box or a cardboard box with a plastic wrapper on the inside.
Metal can that's going in the trash.
So
it's there's definitely things that will surprise you if you go down this journey of being self-sufficient. The reusable, the one-time use stuff goes out the door naturally. So it's not like, so there are people that go on the, I don't want any one-time use stuff in my house. And that's great. I'm not knocking that in any sense. But doing what we're doing and trying to be self-sufficient, that starts coming very naturally. Like naturally, there's stuff that I'm just reusing. And even stuff that was supposed to be one-time use, I end up using more than once because I'm like, I can wash this and reuse it.
Yep.
Like you learn, you're being a little bit more resourceful with what you have, and you're learning that things just become a little bit more reusable, not so one-time use, and you're learning those tricks, like all of the waste that normally comes from food. So all of the ends of the carrots, all the skins of the potatoes, they went to the chickens they went to the compost. They're not going in the trash. The food waste after dinner, any of the fat off of the meat, because not to bounce back and forth, but if you guys are interested, let me know, I'll give you more info. But when you're canning something like meat, you don't want a lot of fat in here because it's just gonna get very fatty. So you're essentially cooking this for 90 minutes at above boiling temperature because of pressure. So all the fat that's in it is going to get cooked out. So you really trim it out, and you're trying to use a lot of your leaner meat. So all the fat trimmings go to the chickens. Yep. They go to dog treats. They go to the compost pile. They're not going in the trash.
Not in the trash can, not going to the landfill.
And that was definitely something we weren't expecting.
Yep.
And the whole nutrition side of it has really been something that he has brought up numerous times because he's seeing it. He's tasting it. Like we went somewhere and had store-bought chicken the other day, and he was like, why does it taste rubbery? And I'm like,
I used the word, I think it tasted like chlorine.
Chlorine. So that's just what we found that was unexpected. So we hope that you learned something.
Yep.
We hope that this encouraged you to maybe try to do this.
We are both encouraging y'all to go out and do the same. Become self-sufficient. My favorite word of all, become ungovernable.
If you have any questions on canning or preserving, I, by all means, am not what I would call an expert, but I have been doing it for a few years, and I've learned some of the tips and tricks. If you have any questions, let me know down below, and I will be glad to help you with any resources that I have. I'll recommend some of the books that I've used with recipes and times and guides and all of that kind of good stuff. And let me know in the comments. I'll get back with you, I promise.
So folks, if y'all like our videos, go ahead and subscribe. We need more subscribers, lots of y'all.
Share the video with your friends.
Yeah, share the video to your social media, wherever that may be. Share it, spread it, friends, talk about it at dinner with family tonight.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram. We are there. I'll leave a link in the comments to both of those. We have a Facebook group where we would love for you to join in the conversation. We could talk about anything from processing to the weather to whatever we want to talk about. It's a fun group. Go join that. Go find us on Instagram. I post a lot of recipes and stuff like that there. Just find us, and we'll
see y'all next week.
See you next week.